everybody. Welcome back to the Dr. Greg Jones Optimization Academy and the crash course portion of the Academy. And today we're going to be talking about two of the foundational peptides in my practice, CJC-1295 and Ipamorelin. Right? It's actually two peptides, but hardly ever see them separate, but together they're very, very effective at making your pituitary gland release more of its own natural growth hormone, right? So to put it in perspective, you have two peptides that work synergistically, work together, make the pituitary gland release more of your own growth hormone, so not taking exogenous growth hormone. We'll talk about how that's different and why that's important. So they're two separate peptides, right? And for those who are not familiar with peptides, I'm assuming you are because you're here at this point, peptides are sequences of amino acids that our body uses as signaling molecules, right? And so these two peptides here, again, they tend to be foundational for me because they work so well and they have what's called pleiotropic effects, which means they affect many different systems in the body and affect us on a cell level in different systems, right? And we'll talk about what that means here in a second here. So let's get into it. First of all, what is CJC-1295 and what is Ipamorelin? And to do that, there's a classic photo that I love showing and that I've actually, one of my first peptide courses was brought up and helped me understand how these peptides are working on our pituitary gland. And I will bring that up here in a second for those who are checking it out on YouTube, for those listening on the podcast. I'll try to make it as simple and straightforward as possible. Okay, so we're going to start here on the left with CJC-1295, which is a peptide that we can consider a synthetic growth hormone releasing hormone. So if you know how your hypothalamus works, it's going to release GHRH, and that's going to go to the pituitary gland and make that gland release more growth hormone. So CJC-1295 is more of a growth hormone releasing factor, and in fact that it kind of mimics the way our body uses GHRH. So that's one side of the equation. On the other side, you have Ipamorelin, which is more of a growth hormone secretagogue and binds to the growth hormone secreting receptor, right? Whereas the CJC-1295 binds to the growth hormone releasing receptor, right? And so this one is more of a ghrelin agonist, so it'll make your body stimulate more ghrelin, which will also help you release more growth hormone from the pituitary gland. So think of it as a CJC-1295 stimulating growth hormone production, and more of the ipamorelin stimulating growth hormone release. So if you figure that out, and kind of the way that works is you got one that's going to help you produce more, the other one's going to help you release more, but they work together again to make you release more growth hormone. Now, that being said, when we talk to our patients about how to take this peptide, we always say take it on an empty stomach, because if you see this ghrelin receptor here, I'm going to talk through this pathway, is that when you eat, your body's going to release insulin, especially carbs, and that insulin is going to help you release it, or kind of stimulate the release of another hormone called somatostatin. Somatostatin actually is going to inhibit ghrelin stimulation at the pituitary gland, right? So if you kind of piece that together, if you eat, you're blocking that receptor that you need for this peptide to work. So you just wasted an injection if you did that, right? So this is how it works here, right? These peptides working on different receptors at the pituitary, and you get more growth hormone. That growth hormone goes to the liver, and the liver releases IGF-1, or insulin-like growth factor, and that is what the anabolism comes in. So IGF-1, more fat loss, more muscle building, more bone loss, which leads me into the benefits of these two peptides together. So that being said, why would someone want to use these peptides together? And there's several reasons, right? Not just being cool, and it's kind of like the trendy thing to do with peptides, but because these peptides really work and they do so much for us. So improving athletic performance. So this is strength and endurance and recovery, better hypertrophy, better muscle mass, more fat loss, more weight loss. We use in a lot of our protocols for that as well. You can also use these peptides in people that are recovering from injuries, right? So as you know, growth hormone can be used in the injury post-surgery recovery process as well, improving bone density. So those are osteoporotic patients, so those who want to strengthen their bones, cardiovascular health, neuroprotective. And in one of my posts on Instagram, I talked about brain-derived nootropic factors, so helping with cognition and focus, better sleep. Sleep's a big one, right? And so improved deep wave sleep. And as you know, sleep is where the recovery happens. So if you're an athlete or someone who's trying to improve their performance, you want better sleep, get better recovery, better healing, better processing, better memory, the whole nine, right? And so that being said, these peptides work great, and we love them protocols that we can use them for so many things. We're talking improving sleep and fat loss and muscle building. And so I'm kind of repeating the same things over and over, but I just can't stress enough how these peptides work so well for these things here. So a little bit earlier, I talked about dosing and how we want to make sure that you take these peptides on an empty stomach to make sure you're getting the best benefit from them as well. Again, there's other things we talk about how to dose these peptides. So again, when we want that general cell protective those health benefits. I usually have patients do this injection once a night, 5 nights a week. All right, we don't want to do them every single day because you don't want to cause what's called tachyphylaxis, or the receptor doesn't work as well. And also you don't want to downregulate those receptors that these peptides bind to, especially ipamorelin, because that receptor is a lot more sensitive and less robust than the GHRH receptor, right? So we don't want to overdo it, get kind of diminishing returns on that. And so in a lot of our athletes, if they're really trying to stimulate weight loss, we may actually, or body composition, we may have them do these peptides twice a day. For those who are looking for more of an anabolic effect, that muscle building effect, we may have them do it up to 3 times a day, right? And this is for a short period of time, maybe a month here, take a break from it, maybe cycle off, and then another month here and there. So at the end of the day, we don't want to be on these peptides too long, even with that 2-day holiday, because again, you don't want them to work less effectively, because again, these receptors will kind of downregulate and not release as much growth hormone if we're constantly stimulating them. So who should be cautious of this peptide? And so who should be cautious of this peptide? So obviously, if you're pregnant, right, there's no research on how these affect pregnancy, so I would not give these to anyone pregnant. There is a potential for these peptides to be mutagenic. And so I would be very cautious in someone who has cancer as well. If there's been some type of brain injury or pituitary injury, I'd also be cautious of that as well. So maybe not so much on the performance on how these peptides work, but some people, they are very sensitive to them. So they tend to get more of a histamine response, or whelps, or irritation or redness at the injection site. So there's certain strategies we can do to improve that, whether it be using Alka-Seltzer Gold, using Benadryl, using, I want to say cimetidine is another thing that I've used before. So trying to get the skin to calm down and not have that histamine response as well. So different things we can do on the skin to get that as well. And again, rotating them is a great idea as well. So this is a crash course. I don't want to go into too much detail, but I just want to talk about how these peptides can benefit us to improve performance, better sleep, better recovery, all these great things these peptides are good for. And they can be foundational, as in using other peptides with them to have the desired outcome that we're looking for in our patients. So enough for this crash course today. If you want to learn more about CJC-1295, Ipamorelin, and other peptides, please hit the links up in the show notes, and find me on Instagram, find us on Facebook, and contact the clinic for your next appointment. All right, have a great day.